I love to just talk about who you guys are to start and how we met. That would be really cool. But Dakota Vladimir, is that
Yes,
right?
Vladimir.
All
Oh,
right.
Vlad is
Vlad?
sure. Yeah.
Okay. Who wants to start to tell me about who you are and where you want to go?
Yeah, I'll start. Yeah.
Cool.
So my background, grew up in Washington State, come from a family of general contractors, built subways in the 90s. My family, mostly brick and mortar, not huge in financial literacy. So I think that kind of sparked an early interest. Warren Buffett, always on the bookshelf, interested in becoming a broker, finance. My first investment was actually Fannie Mae. Put $300 in 2000, and I think it crashed that year.
So, is it 2000? How old are you now?
So I was about 10 when I made my first investment through my mother.
Nice.
And it was Fannie Mae, which at the time it sounded like a great investment. They went under that year. So it was a good little introductory into losing all your money.
Well, so that was 10. So we were just commenting that I bought this place. Actually, I bought this place maybe a year or so before, after the too big to fail situation, right?
Yep.
So we were starting to recover at that point. Did Fannie Mae
Yes,
it died in 10?
it was early, and then they recovered and they came back, and then I think they had that issue as well again.
I see.
And I don't know if it was sub loans, if they were packaging a bunch of terrible products together, if that was the issue. But yeah, so my interest early on was just investments, fundamental investments, automatic millionaire, snowballing,
What's an automatic millionaire?
just Roth IRAs,
Oh.
simple stuff. Roth IRAs, 30 years, getting your nest egg, and traditional finance,
Gotcha.
fundamental stuff. I didn't really have a big opportunity at the time, or I didn't think I did to go, because back then you had to work on Wall Street. And there's still pink slips and stuff like that. So as I got older, just reading, didn't have a lot of experience in investments, but crypto came out, was an easy in. At the time, I was learning technical analysis, so day trading a little bit, learning about that.
Holy crap. And so wow, you just went from 10 where you're literally 10, right?
Yep.
And what years were these that you were in the
So
crypto?
so crypto started for me in 2016
Okay.
about. So I was pretty late as far as like,
You were still in puberty. What do you mean you were late? How
well,
old were you at that age?
it's 2017, early 20s. So I'm
Okay,
34,
doing the math
34
wrong.
now.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
34
okay.
now.
Miscalculate. So you got
Uh,
in really, still fairly early at an age, but you got in early
yeah.
from a technology perspective.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as I wasn't buying Bitcoin in 2011, 2012.
Yeah, this would be your studio then, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but early as far as most people would be
Yeah.
concerned. I mean, we were when I first started trading on because I was studying forex because nobody was trading crypto yet, and a lot of these crypto exchanges were just Wild West. They had a couple $100,000 in liquidity. They're mostly overseas, no KYC, nothing like that, and you're seeing 100% spikes just because of the lack of liquidity and stuff like that.
For those who don't understand, I only know about know your own customer just because I've had to file complaints.
Yeah, yeah.
That's KYC, right?
Where's my money? Yeah,
Exactly.
KYC is just verification for consumer. It's essentially consumer protection under a guise of consumer protection.
Yeah.
So yeah, started trading crypto fundamentals. Was terrible at it. Didn't lose a huge amount of money. Mostly defensive trading while trying to learn.
And were you still in Washington State at that point, or did you?
No,
move?
so I was here in California.
Okay.
I'd moved out here, bartending, but trying to learn how to trade. Everybody sees those forex videos, Lamborghini. Everybody wants to
So that's
live that lifestyle.
that's a good segue. I'll let you continue. Just that's how you and I met, literally
Mhm.
a few days ago. And I know, Vlad, you and I met at the same location quite a ways ago, and we might have had an interaction before. A place I occasionally go with my wife. I was eating in the bar. You and I are chatting, and you were multitasking because you're having to take care of a full bar of people,
Mhm.
right? As a bar, and I'm just crushing into you with all this AI stuff, and you were just, I could tell, wanting to have a deep
Yeah,
discussion. And
absolutely.
you couldn't because you're having to serve up people's cocktails. But
Yep.
it's behind the bar is a great opportunity to have
Mm.
interactions with a whole spectrum of folks. You don't even know who they are until they start talking.
Absolutely.
And now we're here and doing a little mini cast.
Yeah, and you had
So-
great questions too. So it was really exciting because
Yeah.
not a lot of people are interested or passionate or in the field or doing things with it.
Yeah. But so before you go too detailed, just do a quick summary and then we can move Vlad.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
won't go
just to
back and forth.
just to speed this up. Traded crypto, long-term investor. Definitely got my 10,000 hours. Don't trade now, but we're working on one of my main projects, Hydra, for automizing the trading strategies, ML models, taking the human element out of it to see if we can I can be successful doing that. But yeah,
Yes.
mostly,
It's a little ironic, of course, taking the human element out of trading because
yeah.
nowadays it's almost all automated, but not to the level you're talking about.
Yeah, I would say 60% of the markets are probably, if not more, are already not human.
Yeah. And then, of course, the people involved in trading often are perceived as not being human either. So that's,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Yeah.
but
Yeah, through crypto, 2021 was great. We had the big expansion. Bitcoin hit all-time highs, 100,000, all that kind of stuff. Did really well. Removed all my trading portfolios. Took 2 years off, and recently I've just gotten back into the market.
nice. And
Yeah.
so you two both work the same place, both bartenders. Is that how you met?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so I was actually going into the restaurant. So it was actually my mom loved the restaurant Blue Water Grill. So we were always
Still
in there.
does.
Yeah, still does. I mean,
Yeah.
he's exceptional at what he does, and he would always take care of us. And I got offered a job there after coming off of my 2 years off. So
I was begging the management to give him whatever he wants so we don't lose him to another place because
Yeah.
he's been shopping around saying he doesn't have enough shifts. I'm like, this guy knows what he's doing. And I'm not talking about strictly the bartending part of it,
Yeah.
but the customer relationships because I have worked with different iterations of staff and having him and another girl, Alana, being the outgoing one, bringing the people in, making sure they working on like customer retention. That was because I was solo. I was a solo man. Out of all the bartenders, I was the only one working on that part of. You can't just serve them food. You're providing experience, and part of it is also you having a conversation and then giving them a taste of who you are, so they want to come back and learn more about you. That's to me, that's the fascinating part of business.
So,
appreciate that.
so that I think I remember having met you first there.
Yes, I
and-
remember the water bottle. That's the
Yeah,
The water bottle is
signature.
the signature
I
brand.
show up with the water bottle at every restaurant. People just after a while, it's not an open. It's not like a wine bottle, although it's as big as a wine bottle. Do you want to corkage me? But remember, tell me about where you're from because it struck me as just interesting as hell.
Yeah, so it's a third world country called Uzbekistan. That's
Yeah.
where I was born. It was part of USSR till about 91,
Uh-huh.
and I was born in December of 91. So everybody in my family were born in USSR. They all got that red birth certificate, and they got the green one from Uzbekistan. But yeah, I lived there till about, we moved around a couple of places. We tried to live in Russia for a little bit, Kazakhstan, all those countries, but we ended up going back to Uzbekistan until I was about 17.
Uh-huh.
And then we moved here. And then one of the greatest things about living in third world countries, they give you a perspective on life. What what things are important. Plus, Uzbekistan is also it's a Muslim country, and it's very big on family values and everything.
Absolutely.
So I moved here when I was 17. Wasn't disciplined enough to like go to college and do all the things I was supposed to do years ago. So I'm doing it now.
Yeah.
In community college now, taking classes, calculus, linear algebra, everything you would need to really dive deep into machine learning.
Uh-huh.
The plan is to finish 2 more semesters, apply to UC, and hopefully get in, learn machine learning from UCST is top 8 engineering school in the United States. So that would be a great opportunity to learn from the best professors out there. But yeah, I have 3 years ago, I've decided to switch careers. That was post COVID. The restaurants closed. Even the ones that reopened weren't doing so well because of all the restrictions, especially in New York City. That's where I lived
Yeah.
before I moved here. And then I was sitting at home. My wife and I you need to get a job that doesn't depend on just people spending their money. I was working at a club at a time. I relied on a bunch of 20-year-olds to spend all their earnings and giving them to me. And I said, it's not going to cut it. It's not a sustainable career. So I started doing software engineering, just started doing JavaScript mostly, HTML, CSS, basic stuff, off the books, off the free code camp. And when I moved to California, I decided to attend a boot camp. So I'm a
Nice.
graduate, I should say, of General Assembly. It's a
Uh-huh.
full stack development, MERN stack, and what's the other? MERN stack was the primary one, basically.
So basically, all self-taught is what you're saying.
Basically, yes, because what they teach you in boot camp, and that's what I didn't realize, because I would have had a job if I did, is that it's not as simple as going in there and getting a certificate of completion. It's an
Yeah.
ongoing process, and you can
Yeah.
never stop. And I feel a lot of my classmates from cohort, they had no other options, whereas I always had the bartending job and always had the skills.
Mm.
I wish that I didn't, because I think I would have taken it a bit more seriously. So I'm doing it all over again, basically. And having the information of this isn't the kind of industry that will just kind of wait for you. You always be ahead of you have to be ahead of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're both AI guys in a sense because Dakota, when you and I were chatting, I mean, you were definitely spewing out some language that most people don't get, and you're throwing acronyms,
Yeah, I
and I'm
still
like, I
feel
was
like
just
I'm
like,
at the beginning though.
no,
you know?
but so are you self-taught as well on AI and just general
Yes.
software?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I think it helps just because it helps with anything if you're passionate, right? And you see an avenue, and I see a lot of correlations with crypto and financial markets. And I think a lot of it just, like he mentioned earlier, it removes the remedial stuff that a lot of people have had to do to produce the same systems. So I think from a general aspect, macro aspect, it's a lot easier to get a lot of stuff done.
Yeah, so I want to ask you something. I just heard it on a different podcast. You're both entrepreneurial, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to chat, because I know you probably have some things you want to go into with that. But I just heard this. It's in one of my favorite podcasts, My First Million. They're interviewing a billionaire, and he was talking about how big T trauma is so critical for most entrepreneurs, successful ones. There's something about it, whether they're dyslexic or Asperger or something, in a world where they just have almost a chip on their shoulder. They want to prove something,
Yep.
or just overcome, or just be driven at, and it just pulls the grit out of you. But
Yeah.
I'd be curious, from your perspective, do you have any of that big T trauma?
Definitely on the spectrum over here.
Yeah.
I don't know if we could quantify
Wait,
it.
when
I
you
don't know
say
if we
over
could
here, do you
quantify it.
mean you're looking at Vlad when you said that?
Well, he knows.
No,
Okay.
it's all him.
Okay. Yeah.
My trauma self-induced, so it's different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't know how easy it is to quantify it. I think knacks and prerequisites definitely make certain stuff easier. Just the mindset you have, maybe, or the way your mind thinks. I don't know how much more I could go into that.
Well, when
specifically,
you said that, let's see, what's your family? Did you say
but general
built
contracts, yeah.
subways?
So my dad built subways in the 90s, so they were building a subway every 2 weeks.
Uh-huh. Were you in the? You want me? Were you in the mine shaft, so to speak, as a as
Yeah,
a
they
kid?
tried to get me in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I swept a couple floors, and I was like, this is just not for me.
That's cool. So that's partly traumatic, right?
Yeah, a little bit, absolutely.
Yeah.
My brother ended up taking over the business, so that kind of relieved it for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of respect for him. The brick and mortar
Yeah.
comes first.
Yeah. How about you?
I think
Vlad?
one of the things that I had to overcome from the very young age, I was told that I was going to be a doctor. And I was always told that I was really smart, which, as I'm learning more about life and childhood development, it's probably the worst thing you can tell a child, because that means you're good as you are. You don't have to try.
Mm.
And I think I'm still overcoming that. Just the expectations laid on you, and being labeled as smart probably was the worst thing that could have happened to me, because I stopped trying. I always aced my math test without studying a single word, a single textbook, never doing homework. And then as I started to dip into some of the stuff that like adult would do, like a career, I realized that you can't do that. You can't just, you got to come, if you go into a podcast, you better do your research, but you do your homework.
Yeah, maybe you.
Otherwise, you're going to sound unprepared. And then when you
Yeah.
sound unprepared, sometimes you only have one shot at it. You go into a job interview, which I've been to a couple for software development, and I approach it the way I would approach my math test when I was in 8th grade. I'm just going to ace it. I didn't. And so that was probably a thing I'm still trying to overcome to this day, and just trying to be more disciplined about hard work over being
Interesting.
smart.
Yeah, that's interesting. Anyway, I just threw that out. It was just on top of mind, so I'm
No,
curious
it was
what your
great.
perspective.
I mean, definitely
was.
chip on the shoulder. I think everyone has something to prove, right?
Yeah. So, are you two formally business partners, or are you just exploring together and you're just bedmates? What's going on?
We are working on it. Yeah, we have a plan. And then Dakota is I have some experience working with a team and building software as part of the cohort and everything else. Like, I have figured out that preparation and business planning is essential to actually a successful business plan. And Dakota's just antsy to get in there and try to code. And like, it's amazing that he wants to go now, but I always say we need to have everything laid out, have a concrete roadmap, and then
Structure and optimization, making sure we're doing things right from the get-go.
Yeah,
He's like
because-
that guy, and he was going to school for this stuff, and I was starting my self-learning on it, and I was like, I'm going to take the approach of I'm going to learn and do, and he was mostly learning, so we just got it started doing stuff.
This man's got the vision. That's one thing. Here's the thing. I'm Asian. Let's bring it out there.
Oh,
Asians
really?
are not known for their
and
creativity.
Russia.
I was first of all, without your name being Vladimir, I wouldn't have guessed you were from that part of the world.
Triple A.
But then, of course, you said that I don't be throwing it out there, but you said everyone expects you to be a doctor when you're like right when you're born. So I just
There
put
you
all
go.
that together.
There you go.
It's like, appearances matter, but
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
No, but those,
One sec.
yeah.
Actually, the other reason I stop is because OBS crashes, and when it crashes, you lose the whole segment.
Oh, you have to do it at 15-minute segments or
So-
something?
Sucks. Yeah.
How do you? Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's a terrible. It should write as it goes, but I think it just dumps it out at the end, opens the file in the beginning, and then just dumps it when it closes.
I think it's time to
terrible.
upgrade.
Yeah, go from free to paid. Okay. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt, but so you're in terms of
So we are in bed. Yeah.
You're
yes,
in
you could
bed?
say I said interrupt you.
yeah, but as two part. Okay, I mentioned this in the previous discussion. You have the two pickup trucks, the two parties in the company as founders. You look at some of the most successful companies. Jobs had was right. Gates had Allen. Sergey had Larry. All these folks. I always wondered if Bezos really had someone he did disclose, and Musk doesn't really do shit. He just talks about stuff. But
Interesting.
yeah, I mean, everyone thinks he's like an innovator.
Are you an Elon Musk fan?
I used to be, but I'm not anymore.
Okay.
But it's funny. I had a dream he wanted to meet with me, and I said maybe in the afternoon if I have time. It was funny.
Yeah.
But you guys have an interesting dynamic because you're both technical, and I don't want to say whose jobs whose was, but I'm just saying who's doing the hard lifting, heavy lifting on the back end.
That's a great question. I think right when you said it, I would say he's Was and I'm Jobs.
Okay.
But I don't think that has anything
Well,
to do
you,
with their
I mean, you got the
notoriety.
beard and you look Jobsy.
But I think we both share like macro and micro perspectives on it.
Cool.
He's definitely more technical, and I think two different mindsets completes the picture, right? Sometimes.
absolutely.
So we definitely are very.
I'll tell you this,
benefit
I
each
won't
other.
let him be on stage by himself. He's not gonna be by himself in this turtleneck. I'm not doing that. I'll be like, hey,
I should have worn a turtleneck. That would've been great. I should have
I'm
thought about
part of this too. Yeah, no.
You both are bartenders.
I gotta
which
get my
is-
brand
it
design.
means you can interface with the public, so you both have that capability.
And I think that's great. I think about it all the time. It's just as far as people skills and keeping multitasking stuff like that. It's I don't know if there's anyone who deals with more people than someone who works in the hospitality industry
Yeah.
on a daily basis, and just their ability to relate, interact, find common ground, make people like you, because that really is the business.
It's a superpower, and I've mentioned this a couple times to others as well. No matter how good your product is or service, you have to sell it, and people have to buy it, right? If you want a business, and so therefore, marketing is a huge part of any equation. And we often, I know I come from a very technical side of product, and I often have to sell, therefore, to very technical people, and it's actually not only limits your TAM, it's just so much tougher because technical people are a pain in the ass because they're always asking these questions.
Sure.
I'm not saying that people who are not technical are stupid by any means. I'm trying to say that we be able to communicate to all spectrums of folk is critical, and you guys are doing that in your sort of day job thing,
Yeah.
which is I think is a super.
Yeah.
It definitely develops a skill. I've heard few people tell me, even when I was part of the boot camp, they'll tell me, you don't sound like your average software developer. I'm like, even if you get in to the field and somehow secure a position as a developer, you should be looking to transition into the either sales or project management of some kind, because if you're great with people, if you can motivate them, it's definitely a huge plus. I've seen people who are experts in their fields who can put two words together because they can explain things in layman's terms. They can make it simple and understandable and relatable to people, and that's a skill in itself. And then just finding, let's say you serve 100 people a day. That's 100 different people. You have to find a new perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
So, you guys want to talk about the projects you're working on, or don't feel like
Yeah,
we
no,
don't
I'd
have to
love,
tell people.
I'd love to. We talked over it a little bit,
Okay.
and I think there's some things that I think you guys are probably working with in your background in pharmaceuticals as well. That one of my projects is shares. So my main project before we got together, just with my background in trading, analyzing market sentiment, grabbing data through APIs, so big data sets, signal engines, scoring engines. This week, working on machine learning models, getting those fine-tuned. And I'm currently, I think we had talked about data centers and running into the data problem and quality of data and all that kind of stuff. But essentially, what I'm working on is a multi-source data collection, machine learning, source selection, signal scoring engines, confluence analysis, symbol filtering, multi-time frame analysis.
There's a ton of stuff you're doing. So I want to ask you something here. A couple things come to mind. First of all, the word sentiment. Do you have any idea how the recent AI boom? Did you look into the history of it, or maybe you followed it? How it originally was inspired off the early Skunkworks project at OpenAI.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I've heard this. I don't know too much about it, but
But what would you know about it?
I know that origin essentially. Not much too much more from
Right.
it though.
Do you know what content they used initially?
I don't know.
You? Which is really interesting because Google actually used in the early days Amazon affiliate program
Mm,
as well as a way to find its way into the market to learn how to monetize search.
mm,
Okay. OpenAI used Amazon Reviews
mm.
in their early Skunkworks project to realize they could derive sentiment in these transformer type models.
Heuristics from the data.
It
content.
was
Wow.
Amazon Review,
Mm.
and they could derive sentiment analysis, and they just, whoa, this is, let's train the whole internet on this.
Right.
Sentiment is such a powerful thing if you think about it. And I've always said content is king in AI, and I've been in this space for decades. A lot of
Yeah.
people miss that boat. They think about the technology and the frameworks and the engines and all that, but it's content stupid. And this one, you asked me earlier why I do these podcasts. Well, I think it's really to memorialize interactions I have with people
Yeah.
and my own background in a lot of ways, but to just capture the content in a form that I could later utilize. And you were talking a
Yeah.
little bit about driving models that we could use as maybe put a human into the computer as an AI entity that I used to say, I want to build an AI dad. And I just take all its content and have my dad, who recently passed, and be able to talk with him and use all the expertise that I've captured in a model.
Referring to the toast.
Toast is another thing that just came into being, but it's similar in concept.
Yeah.
In terms of maybe content there would be useful for
Mhm.
model building, but not exact mine at this moment. But the reason I throw that out, in part to get you to think in terms of how this discussion is going, less what you
Yeah.
plan for.
Yeah.
What does that bring to mind in terms of what content that you see today that could be important for your business
Well,
and
so
your business thinking?
do you want to go or should I?
Yeah, majority of the business ideas that I have, I'm working on 5, 6 different ones, including the one that we're working on together. But they all have a common theme, which is education. And probably the way my mind works is that I'm trying to find ways for AI to help us learn, help us evolve, help us be better. And then I'm not talking about simply just having an LLM that spits out all the answers for you. I'm talking about some techniques, memory techniques, some other ways to internalize the information, just make it more efficient. It's basically about human performance, but education is probably the most common theme between them. Like we're talking about finance, we're talking about the bartending, we're talking about parenthood. And yeah, like I said, I was talking to him earlier that I'm working on developing like 17, 18 different sub-agents. Every single one of them is just an expert in the field that I'm personally interested in. Like, for
Nice.
example, yeah, so
Very nice.
I want to make sure that I can go to someone, like I go to a doctor, I can see a doctor, but if I can have my own specialist that I could talk to. And I also heard a short of a guy comparing a large language model. I believe he was talking about GPT and his lawyer. And he talked about giving a call to his lawyer. It was a 30-minute conversation. 10 of it was small talk. Another 15 was legal advice. 5 was to say goodbye. And then he paid him $500 for it. And then
Yeah.
he used those same questions, compared it against LLM, and it was identical. So he's like,
Yeah.
why am I paying this guy $500 for 10 minutes of small talk? And that's got me the idea of what if you had an expert for every single field? And then not only for them to explain it to you in the most technical terms, but also break it down in a way you'll be able to understand. And then perhaps in the future, make it available for everyone so that people aren't just,
Personalized.
yeah.
And so I think I encourage you again is to focus on the areas that appeal to you most, because while you're unique, there's a ton of people who have very similar interests out there. And then you align your passion immediately in doing that. And you're building your own eating your own dog food, so to speak, and building it at the same time. And you might find it's a lot easier to monetize that way, as opposed to trying to project in your mind what do people want to buy. Just do things for yourself and then eventually scale it. And it might be incredibly lucrative. And to work together, you might align in the same way.
Yeah. Just kind of like you said, I think that's essentially what my main project, Hydra, is taking the trading aspect and automizing it and making my trading investments better.
So you see it as an agent for you to help you make money in your sleep where you don't have to make the decision, but you actually had made the decision by teaching it, so to speak?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that loop,
Yeah.
right? It's just continuing that loop, and obviously, can do things that I can't do. It can work 24/7, data sets, the PhD level math that goes into scoring and the logic for the technical indicators that are being applied to the charts, the candlesticks, and stuff like that.
So I'll throw something out there maybe just to stir it up a little bit. First of all, there are a ton of people working in the space that you're describing. It's highly competitive, and some actually they may be as, if not more skilled than you, both in the computational side and even in the business trading side, and I don't understand that stuff. You guys have a unique experience opportunity here, though, to blend together market dynamics and monetizing market dynamics. And yeah, the math and models that are done to do that, but also how to do self-improvement, which is what you're talking. And can you think about strategies where people take bets on themselves and trade and invest in themselves
Yeah,
in a
absolutely.
way that they grow in the way that you're thinking? So have you guys thought in that context?
Utilizing the tools available to you. You just keep saying, I remember when my aunt moved from a small city in Uzbekistan into my city, which was a larger city. She got a job as an accountant, and back then they were doing everything by book. And my mom told me like, hey, you should take some classes. Let's do Microsoft, everything Microsoft related. So I studied some Excel, and I realized this got to be the most powerful tool because it automates a lot of what you would have done by hand, right? So the tools you have available to you they can elevate you to the next level. So like exploring what AI can do for us and automating a lot of the things that otherwise would take me hours. For
Yeah.
example, I already mentioned
Yeah.
that I'm not too creative. I'm not gonna sit there and if I'm tasked to develop something that requires creativity, it would take me hours. AI can do it for me.
Okay, let me throw
Yeah,
something out here
absolutely.
really for you to think about, because I've heard a little bit in the past and I've thought about it, and it's right in line with the combination here. If you think about education today in the formalized way in the US, you either get friends and family to fund you or you get loans and the government to fund you.
No.
But no one really takes stock positions, equity positions in people. And this is like spot on to what you guys are talking about. Basically, your both backgrounds, because if you could achieve that, it would be transformative to education, which I think really is in need of disruption today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's face it, I would love to have a little position of a bunch of people for which I've interacted with. If they get success and I get some return, some divvy, or some, maybe I have to exit out, get some money out of it. But are you laughing because you've had this discussion?
Yeah.
We've had the discussion.
Yeah, we have it almost every day.
Do
Yeah.
it. Do it. I mean, that is your business. I can tell. It's a perfect combination of what I've heard in 10 minutes.
So yeah, my main idea was I was playing around with the like project management software like Jira, Trello, and Linear, I believe. Yeah.
Linear, yeah.
And then every software development company uses it. It's the ticketing system. There are tickets with high priority, low priority. There are due dates, and everything is automated, connected to your Slack. And I'm just scrolling through it. I'm like, what if there was a system where every time you complete a ticket, it actually gives you points, and that point, and give you a little background. I'm a big gamer. I've been
Yeah, I can
gaming since I
tell.
was 10. And then RPGs, any kind of game where you're able to create your unique little character with unique characteristics and abilities. I was always big into that. So I apply that logic to almost everything I do, especially software. Any project that I'm working on that's related to education is always gamified, because I know that this is the most fun way to learn anything. Like Duolingo, one of the largest apps in the world, it's $1 billion company. Why is that? Is it because they teach languages? There's plenty of apps out there that do the same thing, but they do it in a way that's fun, that's gamified. So I was thinking about creating a platform, a website, or some kind of service just for myself, where when somebody contributes to the project that I'm working on, they would actually earn experience, and that experience would turn into equity eventually when this app starts making money.
Okay, so the gamification is good to engage the parties who are actually getting educated, and which is a key part of the equation. The other part of the equation, of course, is getting the investors to put money into the equation, because in the end, you need this currency called money to fund this activity, right? Now, in order for investors to engage, they need to have the risk shift a little bit, because they're going to always be concerned that they put money into something, someone becomes successful, and then when they become successful, they say, "Oh, go pound sand. I'm not paying you back anything." So how do you establish this either unwritten contract, which I actually believe is more powerful in so many ways, because you don't want to
Yeah.
involve courts and lawyers and all that stuff,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
something where the people are bound, where when someone becomes successful, they feel like they absolutely want to pay back and are excited to pay back the investors.
Yeah.
So what do you think about?
So we've had
Yeah.
this conversation so many
Yeah.
times. The ideas that we have, they have some potential, and Dakota gets carried away and calls it $10 million idea, which I think is amazing mindset to have. But every time he would say that, I wouldn't want to share that money with anyone, and I would always say the same thing. I say the people that get you to that 10 million mark, the reason your app is at 10 million mark. So you want to pay them back because they were part of development, part of the growth.
They feel part of the process, right? It's almost like
Exactly.
their own self evolution in something.
Yeah,
they've
that's why I
developed.
like to target people with lots of free time, like college kids, like they're interested in finance. I'm like, hey, I'm working on this app. It's related to finance. If
Yeah.
you want to contribute to it, it eventually goes live.
So what's your perspective on this one? Because how do you think establishing this contract could best be achieved?
The contract between each other.
Between investor,
Oh,
not between you two, but
yeah.
the investor and the person that's growing, and once they've grown to a point where they actually have a bunch of wherewithal, they say, oh, they're happy to pay back. I don't know if you
Yeah.
guys feel this, but I
Yeah.
often feel I feel good about paying people
Yeah.
in many situations, and it's maybe how the interaction went.
Yeah.
That's a part of it.
Yeah.
But it's also when you reach to a certain level, you realize that it being penny wise
Totally.
cuts off huge opportunity.
Yeah.
And the philanthropist level with Gates and those guys, they've reached such a high level, they just have to give it away.
Yeah.
You want to have people want to give it back.
You want them to be passionate about what they're working on and have some kind of, I don't know if you can put this better, but it's like their own story arc inside of this greater story arc, self-motivating, passionate, being able to earn equity or have some kind of stake in what you're building. And you already had talked about that a little bit. Gamified, allowing people to work on their own projects in the greater scheme. I don't know if you want to cut on that.
So you're still talking about looking at it from the investor perspective again.
Yeah.
So how does the investor
Proof of concept in us, or want to invest?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's going to engage them to risk shift in a way where they're going to get some return, but then they also feel damn good about it, that like they've helped build all these different folks, and they could somehow, some people need to have credit for it. I'm
Right.
not one of those people, but I don't know.
XP, yeah.
What's that?
XP in like a gamified version, right? You're earning XP. See, not from an investor standpoint, but from a company standpoint. If you have people working with you on projects, they're working on their own, they're contributing to their projects, they're earning equity, they're earning XP in a sense.
What does XP stand for? I don't know.
Experience points.
Yeah,
Oh,
experience
experience.
points.
Is that a game?
It's a
So
game.
you guys are
Yeah.
gamers. Yeah, totally
Yeah.
gamers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think from an investor perspective, if you can show them that you have a team dedicated and most importantly passionate, because you brought it up several times, if you're passionate about what you do, everything just comes easier. So one of the main reasons for this platform that I was thinking about, was brainstorming, developing, is the fact that if I don't feel like doing marketing work or doing research, I could just focus on code. I could bring in people who are passionate about it. Because I know some people we know a guy who just loves his research. That's all he does. He jumps into ChatGPT and just chats and gets deeper, trying to get some data that he thinks is relevant for his research, and I don't find it fun at all. So I'd rather have someone else doing it for me. But once I have a team of those people, it'll be way easier to bring it up to a potential investor and say, listen, these aren't just the guys who develop the apps. They're passionate about what they do. They're all experts in their own little field. Let's say I'll be a developer. Let's say Dakota would be responsible for everything AI related, and somebody else would be doing marketing. Somebody else would. It's all about collecting a team. The more entrepreneurs I've encountered and had conversation with, they always say business is about people. It's not about product.
So there you go. And that, I think you start to hit on the point I'm trying to get at. And it's back to this point about having big T trauma for most successful entrepreneurs out there, who often have enough wherewithal to start investing in other parties, which
Right.
they typically do. And I don't want to draw too many generalizations, but I do know people often think in terms of the affirmation of others, the affirmation through certain things. And if you can find a way to gamify even for the investor, where it's not so much how many successful parties have they invested in, but just how many parties they've invested in, and some sort of badge, some sort of scoring system,
Yeah.
something where the investors can get, like, they just use it almost for affirmation to others. And they don't have big showy houses, or they do
Sure.
anyway. Some
Sure.
are very private, but it's like they have a way to show to people that, yeah, look, they've not only invested in X number of people, but all those people have also had Y number of success points or something.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So think about a
exactly,
scoring
yeah.
system on both sides.
Yeah.
The people who are engaged to be learning and expand and improve, and then the people who are investing in those to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a way, the investors would also get their experience points for their investments. They would just be worth X amount of points. And then if they, one of the ideas that I floated, like he was asking me, how do we get people to stay motivated? I was like, if you don't contribute, the total pool of experience still grows because there's things to do to develop any software. And then as you take a step back, your shares dilute slowly. So you have to find ways of continuously contributing to it. If you're an
Interesting.
investor, you're just
Yeah.
like, oh, my shares are diluting because these guys are doing so much work. Let me either try to get in and learn what these guys are doing, or let me just see if they need more money.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pay to play.
That was my
thing.
idea.
Pay to play.
It is pay to play, yeah.
Pay to play, which is also a gaming term, just so you know.
It's an investing term before it came.
That's also probably. Well, I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Some people don't like that. They don't like crushing out early parties on an investment perspective because
No, it's very true. Pay to play does isolate a lot of people
There's a whole
or
science
push
behind
out.
it.
One of the best games that's free, Fortnite. It's just absolutely destroyed everything else, and it was free besides skins and stuff like that, but not pay to play per person.
So here's the deal, I don't know if we were going in the direction you wanted to with these kinds of conversations, but I'll tell you, I think about this often. I live in this world of bleeding edge. I like to work and interact with really sharp folks like yourself and that are driven, but there's also a huge population of people out there that they're still pretty smart, but they're just not as driven, or they're lazy. And there's that other part of the curve, the laggards, so to speak, and not on the front end of bleeding edge. How do you engage those folks in the self-improvement world that don't want a cheap fix, easy to achieve? Take a pill to lose weight as opposed to damn workout.
That's the model that works, right? The pill that you can take. That's the model that works, right?
Yeah, but it does in a sense. But
Or the people want, I should say, not the one that works.
So you look at something like Ozempic. It's the rage, right?
Yeah.
People microdose it, use it for a bunch of different
Great
stuff.
example.
There's some recent science that is showing that there's some optic problems. We're actually experiencing vision issues. There's no such thing as a free lunch in biology. And I
Yeah.
think the same is true with what we're talking about here.
Sure.
So the quick fixes are often working out takes time and energy, and the amount of time you put into doing that, it's important. Don't expect to achieve that $1 million, immediate $1 million, or whatever the phrase you used earlier. And
Yep.
I don't think businesses work that way. You have
Yeah.
to build them slow and steady. But how do you engage those folks that are out there that just want it easy?
I think the only way to do it is lead by example. And one of the best examples I like to bring up, I was trying to get my wife to do push-ups. I'm like, you got to be able to do push-ups. It's basic human movement. And then I could be telling her to do this for months, for years. Nothing mattered until I started doing it right in front of her. I would walk in the room. I would do 10. I would leave. And then at the time I was working at a club. And then I would get home around 6 a.m. So I would just fall asleep. And then one day I just wake up. It's like noon. I got 3 more hours to sleep. I open one of my eyes and she's doing push-ups without me even knowing or watching her.
That's
and that's when I realized, that's the
Yeah.
only way to do it. You want your kid to exercise, you got to exercise in front of him. You want your kid to be an academic, you got to show him the results
Yeah.
of this is what it takes. And that's one of the quotes that really, I really like this quote. Somebody was saying that you're watching your kids grow up, but your kids also watch you grow up as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
seeing the process of you struggling every day and waking up early, just being disciplined about building your business or whatever it is you're trying to achieve, that will definitely set them up for life better than you constantly telling them you should be doing this, you should be doing this. So I think it's the only way. You just have to do it, and people will respond. People respond to success very well.
And so, do you have the same perspective?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, right? Because how do you get people to work out who don't want to work out? It's a great question, right? Personalized, making it personal, finding ways that Because a lot of people, they think, like my brother right now, he's trying to lose weight. He's lost 17 pounds. He's 6'4", 350 pounds. And there's different ways to go about losing weight, whether you're just weightlifting or you're doing cardio, and finding the right ways definitely makes life easier for people, but also finding ways that they want to do it, whether it's through playing a sport or the personalization of selling a product to someone. How can you relate to them and also introduce the goal with models they might already have that they want to sell, because it's all self motivated.
So I think it's all about pain tolerance, and some people have incredible pain
This
tolerance.
is a new word that I've heard recently.
Pain tolerance?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And those with grit just have this ability to work through it,
Mm.
realizing that the pain disappears.
Yeah.
And I think if there's a activation energy in chemistry and physics, if you can't overcome that activation energy, you ain't getting to the next level.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with exercise. If it's too difficult, people give up. If there's a way to do the Karate Kid approach, wax
Right,
off, paint
right.
the fence, where they're not realizing they're doing it.
Right.
But then suddenly it lowers that activation energy.
Yes.
And it increases, unbeknownst to them, their pain tolerant. You can do that through drugs, which I recommend not doing, through external forces, which is something to explore. And music and sound, this is something I'm working on a lot. And and temperature and things to dietary intake. These are things to actually affect one's ability to tolerate certain levels of pain. And Ozempic is one of those. It's actually endogenous. It's a natural compound that's in our bodies anyway that lowers the noise and the food cravings, or it's actually, there's an olfactory interaction as well. So the sense it affects almost all senses, which is what people use to perceive pain.
Yeah.
So if you increase the ability for people to handle certain thresholds of pain through different mechanisms that may not be obvious, and they might not be direct to the product or service you're talking about, but it's a part of it somehow, I think you can get them to overcome that activation energy.
Yeah.
So something to think about.
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
That's something that I've recently just been thinking about on top of my head, because I've heard it a lot in podcasts about Olympic trainers, weight trainers, just their ability to handle pain. And like you said, get over it at that point. And I think it relates to the way that you're working out. It's like a Taoist would say, the path of the least resistance to achieve, to
Right.
get to where you want to go.
Yeah.
But also the resistance is what makes you.
Yeah,
That resistance is.
Yeah, you need the work.
Yeah.
You definitely need the work.
The pain, right? The pain.
Yeah, because of force, just distance isn't enough. You need the resistance back, I think, in order to achieve.
But I guess
what you
that's like the golden ticket, right? Is how do you make that path right there? Because once you solve that, it's
For every beginner out there that's trying to exercise, I like the guy's name, Joe DeSena, I believe. He was the guy who he was a founder of Spartan Race.
Okay.
And he wrote a book about it called The Spartan Way. And one of the things I remember, it was basically 7 commandments, 7 virtues of Spartans. But in the beginning of the book, he mentions the fact that if your goal is large enough, for example, if you want to look better, or if you want to exercise just to look better, very vain, right? But that could be here today. And during winter season, it's not so prevalent. So you stop doing it, you forget about it until summer season again. But if the goal is large enough, if your goal is to be fit because you want to live longer, you want to be active with your kids, right? If the goal is large enough, it pulls you towards it, as opposed to if it's just small, you have to push yourself out of the bed. So his big idea about setting up realistic goals, they're large enough for you to be just pulled by them.
Right.
Yeah, so
It's
I
baby
love
steps.
this idea.
It's totally baby steps.
Yeah.
But there's also an important part about removing internal resistance. And you hear a lot, for example, in biology about inflammation being some of the big causes to basically every medical disorder.
It's the base, right?
I hear that
Inflammation
all
is
the
the
time.
cause.
Yeah.
It's a cause, right?
Well,
of everything.
it's internal resistance, basically.
Interesting.
Right? And if you think about things that help reduce that inflammation, everything from diet, sun exposure, good sleep,
Cold therapy.
cold exposure. I was just going to say that.
Wim Hof, little Wim
Absolutely.
Hof.
Right. And
Hydration.
breathing, yoga, whatever it is, if you get a reduction in inflammation, you actually often increase your pain tolerance, because
Yes.
pain actually creates inflammation. And so you want to push, by bringing it down, so you have more tolerance for certain things. But if you're less internally resistant to things, you will go to that next level we're talking about. So whatever business plan you're thinking of or projects you're thinking about, try to think about ancillary things And it could be analogous to your bartending stuff. There could be a social interaction, gathering, music, maybe it's sound therapy, something that helps remove those or reduce those internal resistances to engagement in whatever product or service you're talking about. So it's just
Interesting.
think about that stuff, because often people focus just on product. And I know that marketing and sales in interaction with people with your service or product is critical. So
Mm.
how do you get people to come to it? You know,
Yes.
Field of Dreams doesn't work in business. Build it and they will come.
Build it
That's
and it will
bullshit.
come.
I
I
mean, that's
literally said
bullshit.
that when I walked in here.
Yeah. You don't. Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. It never works that way. You could have the best product in the world, but if people don't know about it, it's never going to sell.
That's
Yeah.
where Dakota comes in. One of his biggest, he thinks one of the biggest features of the app that we develop is going to be the social app, because it brings people together and building community, bringing people to certain restaurants.
And this,
Kind of
so is this
exposure,
what
yeah.
you're talking about with Hydra? Is that what
No,
you're saying?
so Hydra is my own project. So Hydra is my main project.
Okay.
That I just work on by myself right now. But our main idea is a bartending app that's just sums up our expertise and our knowledge in the hospitality industry and creating less resistance to people who want to break that barrier, single moms, college kids, people who want to be able to provide and whether going to school. Because I think hospitality, bartending, serving, whatever it is, it's a big opportunity. When my friends were going to college, they were in college for 5 years, and I was serving bartending. They weren't doing that, and even afterwards, I think it's very supplementary and a good avenue.
Is the app more of a social engagement app? What is
So
it?
the idea started with a simple bar book.
Hmm.
We're talking about an application that you open to look up cocktails. But
Okay.
then as it evolved
Uh-huh.
and both of our minds just collided, started brainstorming what it could become. And then it became this thing where people could come in for a bar book, but they're going to stay for the experience, whether it's find a cool bartender that's got the high reviews, that's able to make all the cocktails you can, find a cool bar, or maybe from my own perspective, what I think I would bring into the app is the educational part, right? If we talking about someone who's a college kid trying to get a bartending job to work through college, but there's also a lot of people who do it as a career. They
Yeah.
decide to stay in the industry, whether they want to be in the management, whether they want to stay bartending, and a lot of moms like serving as well. And then if we could level them up by just having them play a couple of games on our app and maybe engage in some social interactions on it, if that increases their earning potential, that's what we're going for.
So this is a great idea. So it's a bit cliche. If you remember in the old days, people go and tell their problems to the bartender.
Oh yeah,
Still do.
Still do.
I call myself an anesthesiologist with an NDA.
Right. There you go. So that's beautiful, because a couple things here. First of all, it's almost a psychiatry type element to
Absolutely.
it. It can engage anyone. But if there's an element to this, that there's a feedback loop a little bit where people can engage in this, talk to my bartender without alcohol, and they get not only feeling good about the conversation, but that you can help build them towards or direct them towards educational things that are going to improve them, which is right back to you're doing. Now, if you have this in a way where you then have investor exposure on the back end, it's de-identified or something, but they could say, oh yeah, I want to put financial wherewithal into this, so that the people who are talking to this bartender can actually say, oh, wait a second, I've got someone who's willing to invest in me to do XYZ and I need to kind of report back, and if I'm increasing in my performance in these particular areas. But you could see that this kind of thing, it can come together from the earlier ideas we're talking about.
Yeah,
where you could
absolutely.
scale
From
it up.
a macro view, as far as creating systems, yeah, absolutely.
Because I don't know if you think it's not just with bartending. It's not just people feeling good. It's maybe giving. I'll tell you one little story that was really interesting. Years and years ago, my company was on the financial ropes, and I was like almost done. And I was flying back from the East Coast and met with a big client, and they were not going to do a next level deal with me, which was needed in order for my company to survive. And I was just like done. And this guy next to me on the plane, he kept hearing me sigh, and he said, what's going on? He goes, and I said, my company's probably going to disappear. I don't have enough money to keep it going. And he said, you have customers? I said, yeah. Just coming back from one. And are they big? I said, yeah. And he said, why don't you tell them you're on the financial ropes and you need your help. You
Yeah.
need their help. And I said, I can't do that because I was depending on the renewals. I was depending on other companies' renewals. And so this was 20 years ago.
A lot of working parts trying to
Yeah, I totally did not want to jeopardize it, not the world to know that my company was
the
struggling.
validity of
Right.
right,
And that as soon as you start talking to one person, you
Yeah.
expect them to talk. And I went back home and I thought about it. I said, you know what? Nothing to lose. So I reached out to them and said, hey, I'm done, but could you help?
Mm.
It scaled up to the fairly high level of the company. And they were talking about potentially acquiring us. And I said, no, you're too small for us, but we'll do a big license. And they paid a chunk of money,
Wow.
rescued us.
Wow.
And this one stranger next to me, and I wasn't drinking, but he was next to me. He was a mini bartender.
Yeah.
And he gave me some very insightful information that just changed my course and didn't expect anything in return. And one day I'll find him,
That's
but
awesome.
that saved the day.
That's awesome. It's great that you have that little like that moment. you
Right,
know?
exactly. And so that's a talk to your bartender concept is
Yeah.
something you could do that does just that for people.
Yeah, so I think originally it's like he said we're looking at it's like this is going to be the age of SaaSes, right? So everyone's going to have their own type of application or product or whatever it is that they're doing, and there's caveats with that, right? The level of coding is going to be lower, there's going to be a high volume. But for us, we were just looking at the bartending apps that are available, and there's just nothing that, because like I said, like you believe, providing value, building these people up, giving them the expertise and the confidence to be able to, no matter where they are in their life, to go get a job and get income, to get them through college or whatever it is.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but your agent, the bartender agent, is that the bartender would use that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have the free time while you're working in the bar to sneak back and get some input into it and then get response and then take that to
So
the clients.
we've
do that.
already figured this out.
Okay,
Yeah,
so if
this
you
is
got
one
that
of
problem
our-
solved, then you
Yeah.
were that interface, the human interface between you and the machine and the other human.
Yeah.
But think
Yeah.
about that. That's
No,
that's-
absolutely.
I would go beyond just thinking about selling to the bartenders.
No,
try
of
to
course.
ultimately
So-
sell to the.
So on that note, just to piggyback on that idea, obviously the app is designed for bartenders, whether they're working, whether they're learning, whether they're looking for a job. It fills that whole. It's essentially taking someone who doesn't know anything about bartending and putting them in a Michelin star, being able to bartend is essentially the goal.
Right.
But then there's the other side of it, which is how do you incorporate other people from the social networking aspect and creating a community and a distribution and incorporating the people on the other side that aren't the bartenders.
And so, what are your ideas on that one?
Oh, we've got ideas. I believe I'm not, it's crazy to say, but I'm a bartender. Don't drink cocktails. I don't enjoy making it
crazy.
particularly.
Yeah.
You were like, I have ideas, and he was like,
Yeah, but I was just hanging out with one of my friends.
No. No, in fact, no, not at all. I want to hear ways to invest. Cool app name. Invest in your bartender, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's basically what we're talking about.
So one of my friends say he loves his cocktails. He's sitting there. He's of Chinese descent, right? So he's sitting there saying, "I love a cocktail that is spicy, that is sweet, and that is sour." I'm like, "What you need is pad thai. That's what you need." And one of the ideas that Dakota brought to the meeting, to our little chat, is that the people should be able to look the cocktails up by flavors, and this opened up the whole new other feature for which the customers will be able to apply. So when you open any app, there's a landing page trying to customize your experience as much as possible. If you were to say that you're not a industry professional, it will take you to a completely different app that will basically be your own personal cocktail expert. What kind of flavors are you into? What do you prefer? What's your favorite dish? And then it will create a custom cocktail just for you, so you can show to your bartender. And if he's got an app, he's just gonna scan it and then you're gonna have all the information about it. So I'm going for something that's convenient because I understand that SaaS, most of them are just designed to automate the boring stuff. I can tell you from my own experience, looking up a cocktail in the middle of the shift is a pain, especially if you do it using Siri or Google. They take you to this website that's trying to see as many ads before you get to the meat of what you actually need. Yeah, and it takes about 20 to 30 seconds. You don't get to see anything but like a few blocks of text.
Yeah.
And that's very inconvenient in the middle of the busy shift. What we were talking about is to make it a lot more visual, a lot more easier to process.
Yeah.
And that's one of the features that probably make our app more appealing is that it's not just text and it's not a bunch of ads. It's actually very, very visual.
Interactive, right? It's
Also
it's how do you, because we have this with, I guess you could say it like in social networks, right? We have this feeling of feeling connected, but we're really isolated.
Yeah.
And it's part of my job is to be able to create this new experience that ties in reality.
Right.
in your day-to-day life with the virtual things that you're using, whether it's you're at a bartending app or whatever it is.
Let me throw an idea out for you, and then I'll pause. But I want to throw an idea for you to think about. And you think biologically as well. I understand, right? I don't know if you knew this, that there are actually researches that shows this. You can take a picture of someone's face and tell by the quantity of visceral fat that's captured in the photograph to identify certain health issues. You can take a scan of someone's retina and identify a ton of health issues.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, AI
that's
is
common, yeah.
incredibly powerful with that. You just need good training sets for that sort of thing. You guys have an opportunity to say, clients, I'm working on this AI system that, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to take a picture of your face and the drink that you like most. And I bet you can start to train models that go from the imagery of a face or an imagery of a person to the cocktails that best work with them.
Interesting.
And so you just need to
With
bring
their biology. With the
Yeah,
biology.
Yeah, but a photograph is just worth so much, and AI can and derive relationships. You just need to build up the data set, and you have to have people
That's a
open to
great
doing
idea.
that sort of
I love
thing.
that.
So ponder that for a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually feel I've been talking way too much. So what do you
It's
what do
your
you guys
podcast.
want to talk about? It's up to you.
No, it's great. We can go back into the bar app that we're working on, or the biology. The biology aspect's really interesting because we're thinking of it from a flavor profile, from a food pairing, from the
Yeah.
technical aspects. But the biology is really interesting. The comment, like being able to have because I think there was a huge health craze like a couple years ago. I don't know if it was before COVID or after COVID, but most restaurants were switching to these very like health-oriented cocktails,
Yeah.
and it's really hard to implement just because you don't have the right bartenders creating these drinks and stuff. But it's like a turmeric martini, stuff
Right.
like this for inflammation, for personalizing
Yes.
your biological cocktail. When you were in the bathroom, I actually made
Yeah.
a comment to him. Tequila's, to get most people to know, but tequila is actually bypasses the liver, so it's one of the better spirits to actually health-wise.
Really? No, how's it
Well,
bypass the
I
liver?
guess I shouldn't say this to a physician in chemistry.
How
quote me.
does the alcohol
I don't know if
bypass
it
the liver?
bypasses it,
Yeah.
but
Maybe it's less absorbed. I don't know.
yeah, it has a less detrimental effect than
Okay.
other stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
No, but no, it's you. We could explore some cool things on that.
No.
In fact,
Yeah.
yeah, because herbs and spices, that's nature's medicine,
Yeah,
right?
tonic.
And a lot of times people just overlook the importance of herbs and spices. And so I'm to the point now where we literally have on our counter a little carousel where there's spices. If they're out of sight, out of mind, a lot of times people keep them in their cupboards. I literally, to my wife's dismay, just leave them on the counter and spin it around. And I will almost every time I make a salad or something, any kind of breakfast, anything, I'm using no less than 5 different seasonings like turmeric, ginger. I'll use allspice loaded with polyphenols.
Yeah.
And these are great tasting spices too. You can pop in drinks.
Yeah.
And look, the alcohol at the end of the day is just so bad for you. And I know it's your
Yeah.
bartending stuff,
Yeah.
but if there's a way that you could start to wax on, wax off people, move them towards more healthiness through herbs and spices, or actually what's also key, like pickles / sauerkraut, like any kind of fermented elements.
Probiotics.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then any kind of fiber prebiotic, just basically everything you think of in terms of health food, if you could somehow systematically weave into the bar. Now you're working in someone else's establishment, so it's a little more challenging.
Yeah.
But it's something to think about.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's great.
our job is not to let people know that alcohol is bad for you because that would be
Yeah.
bad for business.
Yeah.
But the idea behind building an application that people are actively using, every app you're using has got some kind of agenda, right? They
Right.
have their own motives. If your motive was to help people's health, I don't see how that could be a terrible thing. If you were to promote things like roots and spices,
Especially if you come up with a combination. So we know alcohol affects your REM and just in general disrupts your sleep. There are spices that work to the other side of that.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
magnesium, when people different forms of magnesium help with sleep. Rosemary. There's certain
Yeah.
spices you could pop in and you could say this helps. You could take claims even though you're not docs. You could
Right,
say this might be
right.
able to help you sleep as well. And I know sleep is just one of those things. If we nail it, that's one key
Yeah.
thing. Then movement and diet. But Yeah, think about that. And if you get a good tincture of spices, it, some analogous product to Bartender's Friend or whatever, there are products out there that people have made that came out of this research of bartenders, right? And then
Yeah.
people buy them in Walmart
Yep.
and Albertsons
Yeah.
and stuff. And
Yeah,
so
both sides.
ultimately, if you can come up with a product like that you could truly scale, then you make big money in your sleep.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
literally. So something to think about.
Absolutely.
Supplement market is huge, right? Somebody was talking about breaking into the market, like developing their own protein powder. I'm like, that is insane because the
That's
big
big.
guys will try to crush you
They'll
at
eat your
every
lunch.
point.
Yeah, they totally will.
In order for you to launch something like this, you'd have to be a big media personality. You got to be some kind of bodybuilder.
Just
But
'cause
having
it's
an
so
app that people
competitive.
use, yeah,
just
having a,
that's so competitive.
if you have something that lets people, most importantly, when I ask people about any app ideas, my first question is, would you pay for this? This is one of the most important things. So developing something that is worth paying for and having that credibility, basically. You're developed by competent people. They know their stuff. And they're saying that you should avoid these things and eat more of those things. So if you can find a way to do this, and then eventually you could say, hey, I come up with a supplement, it could be good for you. But it's, other than that, it's a tough
It
industry
is.
to break
It
into.
totally is. Totally. So, what other ideas have you had in your bartender space?
Oh.
So that not specific to
As-
bartender, but wild bartenders,
In relation to the app or just
and
in
just
general?
in general, yeah, ideas that might have stickiness.
You trying to open the bar or what?
No,
I'm talking about it for a while.
no. In fact, I'm just curious. Actually, when I
Mhm.
first bought this place, I thought we'll do a little music, and then we'll start to talk about having. I have a wholesale liquor license and kind of all
Oh, you
these
do?
things. Yeah,
Interesting.
but
Do you have a background in?
I did some retail. I actually was behind selling some protein powder. We co-packed it. I learned how to do all this stuff and sell on Amazon and all that stuff. And the margins suck.
Yeah.
And they totally
yeah.
suck. It's a lot of work. But I want to find ways. I personally want to find ways where you can engage people for their benefit.
Right.
Where they grow and they're either educated intellectually or spiritually or physically. And so one of the reasons I have this observation room, for example, is because I try to encourage my wife to bring more friends for like parties and stuff where they're there doing their stuff. And then I have on this side, the people doing the music mixing. Now it's a small place, but
Yeah.
when we do have that, it's pretty cool because they're like in their own just separate
Yeah.
worlds and you're not having to spit on each other because it's down, the sound levels soft enough that people don't have to shout back there.
Yeah.
When you're in a bar and there's a band playing, it's like you can't hear. Sometimes you want them to stop so you can have your conversation.
Yeah.
So we designed this place so they can do both at the same time.
Yeah, because great ideas come out of there, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and here in particular, yeah. And I
Yeah,
love
but
this
just
place.
having them like next to each other, right?
Yeah, it's
The party with the work.
Yeah, on the 3rd of July, I usually have a party because they have Oceanside does this fireworks.
Oh,
And I
okay.
just have people come in. I used to pull it outside and we'd have a bunch of bands, but it was just such a pain in the ass to move all the equipment. And now I have
Yeah.
a fancy setup here. I don't want to move
Noise
it outside.
complaints. Yeah.
No, and during the 3rd of July, it's like they close off the parking lot. You need to be on a list to be able to get in.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so
very cool.
and then they fireworks that shoot off. And it's fun. We have about 50, 100 people come.
Yeah, that's
and
great.
all the musicians I work with that mix and match, they come in and we take turns and we just they don't come prepared. We just play and it's
Yeah.
fun. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So world's not just business. It sounds like you both have children,
Yes,
child,
2-year-olds,
2-year-old, both
Yeah.
of us,
Yeah.
boys,
Boys.
one and
Boys?
one,
Ooh,
boys.
that's tough.
Our first ones.
fun stuff. And we could be talking about this for forever too.
No, the fact how are you slept? Would you sleep well with the kids or?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's pretty optimized by now.
And I talk to a lot of parents. Blue Water Grill is such a kid-friendly place. You see
Yeah.
a lot of parents bringing in their 7-week-olds, and they always ask you the same thing, like, "How is your child sleeping?" Because I mean,
Yeah.
not getting enough sleep, as you said, is
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah.
And they would always say, like, "How'd you do it?" And I start nerding out and telling them there's certain techniques that you can apply, and that actually comes from Jordan Peterson wrote a book called 12 Rules for Life, and he was saying that every time you apply any kind of force to discipline your child, you have to apply the least amount necessary to get them to do what you want. And then the examples that he used, that if somebody invades your house late night, you don't start shooting them immediately. There's certain steps that you need to take. You first need to warn them that you have one, then warning shots, then shoot them lower body or somewhere. And then the point behind us, there are certain steps. So when you're dealing with your child and then let's say they're a little nightmare, and you can't calm them down, you'd gradually want to decrease the amount of force. Let's say you hold them, then you put them down, put your hand on them, then you start tapping them, then you slowly take that away. So that system for me produced a kid who sleeps like 14 hours a day,
Nice.
which is
Nice.
amazing. He
Yeah,
falls
yeah.
asleep by himself. He
Yeah.
sleeps his 12 hours a night and then
Right.
2 to 3 hour nap. It's amazing. But just to say that it was just luck and I have that kind of child would be undermining
Now
all
you
the
worked
work
on
that
it.
I've
yeah,
done.
you
Yeah.
worked on it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So
Do you
I
have-
think
do you have
it's
the same
very
thing?
much about techniques.
Yeah, yeah, about the same. Yeah, sleeps for 12 hours, 3-hour naps.
That's huge, huge.
Yeah, it's tough, right, to get in your work, especially if you the kid running around the office all day. It's interesting. I'm at this point right now where I'll stay up late and I'm like sacrificing that early morning hours, and it's like the approach that you take because you don't really like ever lose the hours. It's just where you decide to position them. But sleep's so important. Yeah, it's interesting.
I was training like a personal sub agent to help me with my schedule because as of August 18th, the semester will start, which means I'll be a full-time student, part-time employee, full-time dad.
That's
And
huge.
I was asking him like, how do I optimize all this? And and I've tried 2 or 3 different LLMs, and they all tell me the same thing. You got to get your sleep, but you got to wake up early. Early we're talking about is like the window where you're the most
No,
productive.
you know what? I don't subscribe to this as much. I used to be a night owl. And it sounds like
Same.
you,
I
Ted,
was a night owl,
because
yeah.
I was getting texts late from you guys.
Yeah.
We're
right.
bartenders.
I'm a night owl.
Yeah, but I'd be like up till 2, 3 in the morning, and
Yeah.
sometimes I'd sleep till 9 or 10. I'm running a company. One of
Yep.
my investors like, "What time do you get up?" I'd say 9. He goes, "I'm in the office by 4:30," and we clearly have different chronotypes, dude.
Yeah.
Back off. I'm aiming to be up at 2 in the morning because I interact with my software team in India. It's come on, what's going on?
Yeah.
But I then Uberman, which I don't like listening to, not only just because he's a Stanford guy and I'm a Berkeley guy, but aside from that, great morning exposure, great. As soon as I started doing that, boom. I haven't used an alarm clock for 2 years.
Were you Huberman?
Yeah,
Huberman.
Huberman.
Yeah.
I said
yeah.
Huberman.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Big
But
fan.
so it's the optic nerve
Yeah,
and everything.
great.
It sucked because it changed my chronotype, but just means my sleep is much more fragmented now. I know that when I drift back to becoming a night owl, which is what I'm naturally,
Yeah.
I think I'm going to get more consistent sleep. But waking up in the early is good for some folks, but if your chronotype says no, then don't do it. It's going to
Yeah.
destroy you. You have to in your schedule case.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but it's
I think
mostly
it's like-
because of the child, right?
Yeah.
That you'd want to wake up early and start your day before your child wakes up. Because if you would wake up at the same time, or
Right.
he wakes up before you, you're not starting the day the way you want to.
Yeah.
Basically, there's no let me take a shower.
It's
and
kind of
let me
like
exercise.
be
No,
sitting
it's all
there,
like-
breakfast made, sitting there waiting for him to wake up.
But you
Yeah.
have, you know what? The bottom line is both you have a child that 1 or 2, both.
One each.
One each.
One each. Yeah.
Yeah, right now, frankly, my kids were not very interesting as the blow-up blobs. Right now, they're very interesting. They're 25, 27.
That's something you mentioned. Yeah.
I love having conversations with them because they're like educated. They're advanced degree kids. They're smart. I love it. But in the early days, man, it's just I couldn't handle it. But think of your kids as a marketplace.
Yeah.
If you could convince them to do shit,
Yeah.
then you've nailed the marketplace, because that's pretty much the world out there who is so focusing on me, don't care about anyone else,
Yeah.
and you
Absolutely.
have to sell them on stuff. So it's like a
It is selling them on stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
yeah. So any other things you want to chat about? I know you're constrained on time, but
I feel. Yeah.
we
We
cover
go
a
all
lot.
day.
yeah, I'm happy to do another one down the road as you progress on Hydra or the Bartender app or any kind of these other things we've talked about, especially invest in someone's education concept. Man, I would love to see a disruption in that space.
Yeah, we're excited. It's definitely a big project. But yeah, Hydra's evolving, and the bartending app's gonna.
You never really described exactly what Hydra was.
So it's a scanner. It's a
Okay.
scanner bot for cryptocurrencies. So it's just gathering data from APIs, from exchanges, order book, volume, order flow, all that kind of stuff. And it's just, I imagine it's got to be something. We're probably doing similar stuff in pharmaceuticals, right? The data sets, being able to grab data sets and find new therapeutics and stuff like that. Making sense of the noise is essentially what I'm doing.
okay.
Finding signals in the noise.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
There's probably some similarities with the pharmaceutical
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, a ton.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've always been worried about with crypto, and just dates back to these early days of the scams where, and aside from the obvious Ponzi stuff we've talked about
Yeah.
with the crypto,
Yeah.
because blockchain it's so black box to so many people, and I have this weird feeling that something to the millionth place, or maybe even the billionth place, it could be very far out in decimal place, that bits are being lost but captured by others.
Hmm.
So it's analogous to remember that scam where people are taking pennies off of the
Yeah.
U.S. governmental checks,
Yeah.
and then they would accrue millions of billions. That's just illegal. But
Well,
I wouldn't be surprised if that
stealing
shit's
pennies, yeah.
happening in the blockchain world, where when people do these transactions, that's
Dust. We call it, it's
There's-
called dust.
yeah,
Dust.
exactly.
It's called dust, yeah.
It's called something which works.
yeah, originally you would have dust like on your own exchange. So in the early days, you would have this problem with decimal points, and that was a huge part because the way that the currency is designed in the decimal place is a huge part, right? Being able to break it apart. But you would buy something and then sell something, and it wouldn't be able to equate properly for the exchange of value. So you would have left over what you would call dust, and you wouldn't be able to sell it or do anything with it. So you'd accrue all of this dust in multiple coins, especially if we were doing like millions of dollars in volume. So you had all these coins in little part.
But so if dust is occurring on the end user sides,
Yeah.
what about when it's being transferred?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was
So
saying.
how many decimal places does it go out to? Do you know?
Bitcoin goes down to, God, I don't even know. I don't even know how many decimals.
We're not talking about thousands and thousands of decimal places, right? There's usually like a round off there somewhere.
Yeah, it has a round off area, but that was the problem originally with the exchanges and just being able to buy, sell, not having enough of something to sell. If you have 0.0001 of something, it's showing up in your portfolio, but you can't do anything with it.
Okay.
So then they introduce functions where you can combine all your dust, sell it back to the market maker.
Wow.
And then to your points, like of course on the backside, you probably have it in, because ultimately it is a Ponzi.
It is.
Many of these are Ponzi schemes,
Yeah.
especially the speculation stuff, the meme coins and stuff like that.
Right. I'm just worried about the call home stuff, especially since the inventor no one knows where he is. The white paper and all that stuff. Come on.
It was funny because you mentioned Ross Ulbricht, I think the other day at the bar, and he actually there was $30 million. He got out of jail, and there was all these really old Bitcoin accounts because you have people who analyze the blockchain. They're looking at all this stuff, and I think he's probably doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Right now. But to your point, I think there's probably dust happening on every level, whether it's intentional or not, maliciously or not.
That's why I just don't trust it. And look, I've been an IT guy my whole life. So I don't play with it. Plus, I can't, like I said, I can't go to Blue Water and buy my clams with Bitcoin. You will eventually.
Not yet.
Oh,
not yet.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious to know, just from my own perspective, it's crypto to me was something that's, if it's going to work, the technology, right? Because you have the crypto, the face, and then you have the blockchain, which is the science, right? I think in the next couple of years, if you're a company and you don't have Bitcoin in your portfolio, I don't know if you'll be able to survive.
Heard that one years ago.
Yeah, of course you can, but it's obviously the best asymmetric bet that's ever been made or relevant. But I just think it's just technology. It's just the next evolution of how our money's being not centralized, things like this, decentralized stuff.
Yeah, you always look for parallels in biology. You've got, again, no such thing as a free lunch, right?
Yeah.
But the parallels in biology there's information flow and there's energy flow, these major systems.
Yeah.
AI today is really hammering on the information flow, and to me, it's like fire in terms of what it's going to do for a human species, taking us to the next level.
Yeah.
But information flow in biology requires energy flow.
Yeah.
Information flow is typically by GTP, and energy flow is ATP, right? They're at the molecule level, right? But if you notice, AI needs like nuclear power plants and a ton of energy, right?
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. You can always have that sort of behind the scenes. The energy is a really important part of the equation. And then with all great strength, there's often a serious weakness very close by. So these are just parallels in biology I see that you have to think about. And so when I see something like crypto, I'm just like, that's clearly a group of people just exploiting and making a ton of money. But there's a ton of people who are losing money or have lost money.
It's nothing new. It's like you said, it's probably very relatable to biology and the systems that have already come about.
I would study as much as possible.
Sun.
Study as much as possible. What biology is, it's human interactions can often be mapped down to even what is occurring at the molecular level.
Yes.
So it's something you often can't zero in on that. But like I said, take things about pictures, tell them billion words and this sort of thing. And content is king. In order to get content, if you have to have people key it in, it's going to really be difficult. You got to be able to passively capture it.
Yeah, that was the first thing that we tried to figure out.
Is
the barrier to entry for users to be able to use your product. And it doesn't make sense to have a product that's not making a system better or providing new value.
Yeah.
So we're excited about it. It's a lot of work.
A lot of projects, keep it going. And I'm sure any one of those might hit, and it might turn out a passion project that really means something to you and that aligns with you and you great
Yeah.
partnership, you'll have some major wins. But happy to do another one down the road as you actually maybe go to your studio and you'll tell
Yeah,
me what your
we'd love to.
successes were.
Absolutely. Obviously, there's a lot that we haven't been able to.
Just the beginning. How stay in touch. So and
Yeah.
I'll sure I'll see you at the bar.
Yeah, we'll be there. We'll be there till we're not, and then there'll be signs.